Well, thank you for that wonderful reception. That's the first time I've seen it with a big audience, and I think it was great. See, I'm going to bring on who we got. Well, we've got Mr. Hugh Laurie with us. We've got Simon Blackwell, who wrote the script with, he did the bulk of the writing. We had a little help from Charles Dickens as well. We've got Kevin Loader, the producer. Are you all back there? All the cast up there? Who have we got? Right, so don't forget. Amy Kelly, we've got Emily's here. Amy. Morfydd is here, his late Dora. A little Easter egg, I don't know if you spotted, Morfydd also played David's mother, Clara. I don't know what that says. We've got Rosalind Elizar, Agnes is here. Steerforth, and Oren Bernard is here. Now, none of us would be here without Mr. David Patel.
Now, before we throw it to the audience, maybe we could begin with where this project originated, the idea of adapting David Copperfield, and also the challenge of such an undertaking.
Wow. Well, like I said at the beginning, I read the book again about 8 or 9 years ago, and instantly it struck me as cinematic. I mean, Dickens writes in a very cinematic way. He's a very experimental writer. Oh, and all the crazy stuff in the film that you think we made up, actually, if you go to look, it's there. Like when David falls in love with Dora, and he sees the word Dora everywhere, and he looks in the clouds and it forms the shape of the word Dora. And he actually, in the book, he then imagines all the clerks in the office with Jip's head. You know, I mean, things like that. And instantly struck me, and I thought, and actually, it's when I read the scene where Betsy, it's described as she runs out the room, David stays inside, and he sees her outside hitting people on a donkey. And I thought, I've not seen that in any adaptation before. I want to make that because of that scene. So that's how it started, and then, as I hope you've seen, the themes in it are so fresh and contemporary and so unfortunately relevant today as well, that it just struck me as something that was, I think, a good thing to do.
Simon, you want to add?
Well, we just wanted, we wanted to bring the comedy front and centre. I think with previous adaptations, it's a very long book, and so people tend to take the comedy out because it often doesn't carry any story. But I mean, it's one of the funniest things I've ever read, and so you take the comedy out at your peril, really, and so we just wanted to focus on the comedy because we both thought it was one of the, it's one of our favourite books and one of the funny, and it's still properly funny. You don't have to think, I can work out how people would have found that funny in 1850. It is funny, and so we wanted to...
It's 900 pages long, but see it as a kind of like a binge reading, you know, if you're going to sit and watch something for 13 hours on Netflix, then you can at least read 900 pages.
My next question is for Deb. Building off of that, the challenge of playing such a famous literary character, but also bringing something unique to it.
Sorry, I'm very nervous, so my mouth is very dry. It was a supreme honour, really. I mean, I sat down with Armando, and I was one of those dopey people that didn't know who David Copperfield was. I was the guy that thought he was a magician. And I went to this meeting very excited to saw some people in half or whatever, and then Armando, he sat down and kind of laid out this incredible story, and I hadn't read the script, and I was so enamored by him and the way he just extracted comedy from every small moment. I called my team up and I was like, I want to work with this man, and it's been a wonderful opportunity, and I think to build on that, like, you know, for him to give us all these opportunities, it'll avoid another dopey guy like me not knowing who David Copperfield is, and hopefully a new generation will be able to look at this film and find a face that they can relate to in all of us on this stage.
I'm so glad you said yes, by the way. I had no one else on the list. I instantly saw it agree. And you're in every scene, apart from the 15 minutes of... Yeah. You're in every scene.
Oh, the cute David Copperfield who made my job a lot easier.
For the rest of the cast, could you talk about as well, like what it was like to work with this material, or the experience of working together with such a talented group of people? Don't all like to answer at once.
Go on.
I feel like we were given so much freedom to play with the script and the scenes, and I think for us actors it makes it so much more enjoyable, and it gives you a sense of ownership, like, over the characters, because Dickens, we're not the first people to tell the story, we may not be the last because it's Dickens, so I think now that I've seen the movie as well, I really think that plays out on screen.
And I like to cast really early so that while we're writing and rewriting, we actually know who these people are, so we can write with them in mind. And then we it's like doing a theatre run, really. We rehearse. I mean, the scene where Ben Wong is trying to get a drink from the glow, that started off as an idea, and then we just played about with it in this, you know, old church hall in London for a day, just sort of blocking it out.
You still gave yourselves room to maneuver, even though you had this amazing guideline.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And even on the day, I'm trying to think of everything. No?
Lots of Peggy lines.
Oh, Peggy, yes, yes. Hot Kettle Black was one of those,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Yeah.
Now, it's a cast full of colorful characters, but Hugh, you get to play one of its most notable eccentrics. Can you talk about the experience of playing Mr. Dick?
Sorry, I was so excited I missed the end of that question.
Can you talk about...
Rush of blood to the
I
head.
imagine it was a great pleasure to play.
Pleasure, yes, pleasure. It was it was an enormously, it was an enormous honour, needless to say, to follow the great man. Two great, and very persuasive and attractive men in the execution of their vision. But I also, as Armando later, expressed it to me the first time we spoke. Mr. Dick is certainly a very early, if not the first, fictional representation of a kind of mental illness. What would it be called? I suppose a derangement. He's certainly delusional at times, psychotic almost, perhaps, and it's something that causes him torment. And it was a character that I must say, I thought there was great pain, but also great joy in his relationship with David, and it was also, but all of that, I must say, was secondary to the pleasure of being in the orchestra, as it were, and seeing these extraordinary instrumentalists. I'm going to flog this orchestra thing until it squeals for mercy. To see them all, to see all the sort of detail and the things that they brought, which is not to say that it wasn't all there on the page. It was. Yeah, Simon gave us basically a rough sketch, and we just kind of riffed it from there. Again, that's not true at all. But it was a great pleasure and a great honour.
And you and Tilda had worked out what the relationship was between, the hand gestures and the signals and the clips when they were to come.
Very enjoyable, and it's a great shame she could be here, because she's the woman's an absolute hoot. And it was very, very enjoyable, and I thought very, very touching, you know, for all this apparent ferocity of Betsy. She's such a good soul, and the relationship, these two slightly lonely, not unhinged exactly, but almost unhinged characters, sort of yoking themselves together and crossing this ocean of life is I find a very touching part of the story, which is just as well because I played one of them. So it's good that I found that.
Any questions in the audience? Yes, go ahead.
Deb, I was here when you were here for Lion a few years ago, which was phenomenal. And this movie tonight was phenomenal too. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you were thinking when you were reading the script?
So I'll repeat the question just to make sure everyone can hear. It was about what your thought process was like as you were reading the script.
I was like, so many bloody lines. No, it really, I just was blown away with the detail of the writing. And then we spent these 2 weeks rehearsing together, and we had the Avengers of every British actor possible coming into this tiny hall. And, I'm a nervous little bean. I think all of us are in a sense, but all of these guys were just so, it really was great. Everyone just was stuck in together, and Armando has this amazing kind of way of extracting comedy from every line. And Hugh would say all the time, we'd run something 10 times, and then Armando would be like, why don't you kind of do it like this? And I'm like, all right, we should just copy Armando now, because he's doing it better than all of us. So that was the ongoing joke. But it was, I don't know.
I never said that.
But yeah. It was great.
I'll tell you who was most nervous. There's one moment I completely forgot. Jay, who plays young David, we were sitting him down for a rehearsal, and it was going to be his first rehearsal with Mr. McCullough. And I hadn't really thought this through, because Peter walked in, and Jay just looked up, and there was Doctor Who. And he was like, I just forgot to tell him. So it was a lovely moment.
More questions? Yes, go ahead.
For the director, which were your influences for the film maybe from other directors besides the book itself?
So the question is about influences outside of the book itself, maybe from film.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I looked at all sorts of things. I looked at Ken Loach, who's a great. I love his films. For the naturalism. I went back again and looked at Barry Lyndon, just for how Kubrick tried to avoid all the conventions of costume drama. Ironically, by actually being very detailed and precise about the period. Which is what we did. We knew it was going to be set in 1840, so let's actually, in terms of the costumes, let's make them look refreshing and new, but let's go back and research the pictures and some of the early photographs of what people actually did wear. And they wore all these mad clothes and mad hair. They did all sorts of things with their hair. So a bit of that. There's a little bit of Buster Keaton, and in terms of the comedy routine, working out comedy routines and things. And actually, I said it before, but the book is so visual, so cinematically written, that was my primary inspiration.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, it was a fantastic film. Congratulations on it. I have a question in regards to the casting for a period piece like this. I found the casting to be quite diverse, but a diverse choice in terms of character. I'm wondering a bit about the rationale for that and sort of the decision.
Could you talk about the rationale behind the diverse casting of the film?
Well, it's something I've noticed in theatre has been going on for years, and it shouldn't be an issue.
Can I ask why you've asked that?
If you want to look at the thought process, like I said at the beginning, I want this film to feel like it's happening now. For the people in the film, although it's 1840, for them that's today. So it should feel like today. And therefore, I did a little talk at the start about how I don't want any costume drama talk, which is, costume drama talk is when everyone suddenly goes up an octave and speaks like, no, just don't go up an octave, just speak like this, you know. And therefore everything should feel like it's happening around us now, and why shouldn't I be able to draw from 100% of the acting community as opposed to, you know, I wanted the person to do that role who would be the best person for that role. That's why, you know, I could only think of Dev as David Copperfield, and with each part, you know, I wanted the best person for that part.
In the very corner, yeah, go ahead.
The novel David Copperfield so famously starts with the acknowledgement of the framing device of, yeah, this is a novel. And something in like the adaptation process, it was possible for you to easily drop that framing device. Why did you decide to do it?
So the question, if I understood it, is about retaining the framing device of having the novel being written within the film.
Well, because in the film, that's what he does. He becomes famous by being a novelist, and his first novel is a novel that is a novelization of what's just happened to him. And if you want to look at the meta layers, it's actually the most autobiographical of Dickens's novels, in that childhood in the factory happened to Dickens, and it was the first and only time he actually used it in any of his books. So it's actually quite a major part of the book, in that David Copperfield sort of works himself out and works out who he is by realizing that he is a writer. And I kind of wanted it to be a celebration of literature and of writing and of, you know, all those phrases that he writes. You know, we mined the book and a lot of other Dickens for as many Dickens phrases, you know, like playing the kettle drum. Mr. Dick, you look like you're playing the kettle drums. Melancholy mad elephants, and that's all from Dickens.
Yes, go ahead.
Congratulations. This is a very surprising film to see from someone with such a distinct voice as Armando Iannucci, who I usually see as someone who can make a symphony out of a sea of profanity.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to repeat all the phrasing.
Basically, you're saying, why is there no swearing? Is that
I'm saying it's great. Yeah.
But the swearing,
I'm sorry, is that right? Did you ever think about putting profanity in it, or did you ever?
I had to stop these guys from swearing like dockers all the day.
This is the censored version.
No, I mean, I've never really thought myself as someone who specialises in swearing. It just so happens that I suppose I'm known for Beep and Think of It because they convey worlds in which people do an awful lot of swearing. And it's becoming increasingly obvious why. Because we are fucked. But this didn't feel like that. However, what I did want to make sure was that we didn't shy away from quite tough moments. You know, the physical abuse of a child, the working conditions in factories, the fact that kids under 12 could be employed, the homelessness, you know, I didn't want to shy away from that. But I also want this to be a film that any generation can come and see and hopefully take something from as well. We find we don't do test screenings, but we do little screens, but we find that actually families come and see it and then go home sort of discussing it all the way home amongst, you know, parents and children, and, you know, I like things like that. Make me think, oh, I think we've managed to get something there that connects.
We have time for one or two more questions. Yes.
No pressure.
Go ahead.
For Armando, you were saying we're all fucked, which from a lot of your previous work, that's what I get. And this, I feel like, is the first work of yours that I think is getting this message of hope.
So the question is about this being perhaps your first work that has a message of hope.
Well, that's the other thing that is there in the book. It's the humanity. It's that, you know, we're all different, and yet we're all the same. You know, in the end, it doesn't really matter what our background is. I mean, David spends three-quarters of the movie being paranoid about his background and whether people would know, and then he owns himself, and it's about that. It's about, you know, engaging with people who may be different from us or express different opinions or who come from a different background or status. It's making that connection. It's like I said at the beginning, it's about community, really. Because if we don't encourage that, then, you know, we're going to be double fucked. And I like to unfuck us. If that's possible.
That would be an amazing line to end on, but we do have time for one more question. So one last question.
And I think, you know, the Democrat candidates, if they're looking for a slogan, is I will unfuck you.
So anyone in the balcony, I want to tell it.
Yes.
Someone.
How was it up there?
I don't see any hands. Okay, I did see a hand up front again. Yeah, go ahead.
Talk about the meaning behind, like all the characters except for the characters
Oh, question is about the character staying the same age.
Yes, I mean, actually, if you think about it, age-wise, it's not a huge time gap, is it? We go from David when he's like 11 to him being 18, 19, so it's not that much. I think some people's hair changes. But I didn't want to go into like prosthetics and makeup, and you know, and also as the film progresses, you sort of start becoming aware that this is David's telling of the story, and therefore you sort of make allowances.
Well, on behalf of TIFF, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Stanford. And so much. Vote for the Global Choice Board, TIFF.net/vote.
Thank you.